Mientras tanto, Putin niega que Ucrania tiene o ha tenido una situación de Estado. Y hace 2 semanas le dijo al mundo que si Estados Unidos y nuestros aliados y los aliados salieran, los aliados también saldrían. Pero nosotros no nos iremos. Sé que estos conflictos parecen lejanos, pero ¿por qué esto le importa a Estados Unidos? Les diré que al asegurarnos de que Israel y Ucrania tienen éxito, ¿por qué es importante para Estados Unidos? Cuando los terroristas no pagan un precio, cuando los dictadores no pagan un precio por su agresión, causan más caos y muerte y más destrucción. Continúan. Y el costo y la amenaza a Estados Unidos y en el mundo aumenta. Así que si no detenemos el esfuerzo de Putin por sobre Ucrania, no solo dañamos a Ucrania. Putin ya ha amenazado minar a Polonia, que el territorio del oeste era un regalo de Rusia. Uno de sus asesores, el expresidente de Rusia, ha dicho que Estonia, Latvia y Lituania, las provincias bálticas de Rusia, estos son aliados de la OTAN. Por 75 años, la OTAN ha mantenido la paz en Europa. Ha sido la base de la seguridad de Estados Unidos, de Europa. Si Putin ataca a un aliado, defenderemos cada centímetro. Tendremos algo que no buscamos. No buscamos tener tropas estadounidenses luchando en Rusia, luchando contra Rusia. Más allá de Europa, sabemos que nuestros aliados y los competidores están mirando nuestra respuesta en Ucrania también. Y si nosotros alejamos y dejamos que Putin quite la independencia de Ucrania, los dictadores del mundo estarían fortalecidos. El caos se extendería a otras partes del mundo, en el Indo-Pacífico, en el Oriente Medio, especialmente en el Medio Oriente. Irán apoya los esfuerzos de Rusia en Ucrania y apoya a Hamas, otros grupos terroristas en la región, y seguiremos teniendo y haciendo que rindan cuentas. El liderazgo estadounidense mantiene unido al mundo. Las alianzas son los que mantienen a salvo a Estados Unidos. Los valores estadounidenses nos convierten en un aliado con quien los otros países quieren trabajar. Si ponemos eso en riesgo, si nos alejamos de Ucrania, si le damos la espalda a Israel, no vale la pena. Por eso mañana enviaré al Congreso un pedido urgente de presupuesto para financiar las necesidades de seguridad de Estados Unidos para apoyar a los aliados, incluyendo Israel y Ucrania. Es una inversión inteligente que dará dividendos por generaciones futuras. Nos ayudará a mantener a las tropas estadounidenses fuera de riesgo, construirá un mundo más seguro, más próspero para nuestros hijos y nietos.
A brazen attack from the sea, Ukrainian forces using jet skis to land in Russian-occupied Crimea. The fighter speaking goes by the call sign musician. He tells me the operation was successful but tough. While we were landing, the sea was stormy, he says. The waves were up to 2 meters high, plus Russian warships were patrolling, the Raptors. The Ukrainians say they also managed to destroy Russian military gear before racing off across the Black Sea, using larger boats to carry fuel for the jet skis on the long journey back to Ukrainian-held territory. Musician says these missions are militarily essential. It helps our forces in the trenches, he says. We distract the enemy's attention towards us, and the enemy is forced to relocate their personnel and vehicles to the Crimean seaside. Ukraine has started a major campaign against Russian military targets in and around Crimea, hitting the HQ of Moscow's Black Sea Fleet, damaging a submarine and a Russian landing ship, as well as hitting an airbase. The Ukrainians use drones and cruise missiles for some of the attacks, but rely on a network of undercover partisan groups inside Crimea for information and targeting. One of the groups agreed to answer our questions, but only in writing for security reasons. We constantly monitor all military facilities on the territory of the Crimean Autonomous Region with the help of our agents and residents of Crimea, who constantly inform us, the ATACMS group writes. A wide and developed system of agents allows you to make a choice. One of the key targets Ukraine has hit several times, the Kerch Bridge linking occupied Crimea to the Russian mainland. The attacks have led to severe disruptions. Russian leader Vladimir Putin vowing revenge. There will definitely be a response from Russia, he said. The Ministry of Defense is preparing proposals. For the Ukrainians, missions like these are also psychologically important, one of the planners of the jet ski raid tells me. We are fighting a trench war on the front lines, and the armed forces' success is not so obvious, he says. And special operations of this kind in the rear or in the sea, they inspire and give energy to keep fighting. And the fighters in the Bratstva unit say their next infiltrations are already in the works, but they won't say when, where, or how. Fred Pleitkin, CNN, Kiev.
Особлива вдячність Сполученим Штатам. Наші домовленості з президентом Байденом виконуються дуже влучно. ATACMS себе показали.
Well, since Russia invaded Ukraine in early 2022, the U.S. has sent tanks and missiles and artillery and helicopters, drones, missile defense systems, troop transports, radar, loads of infantry weapons and equipment, and so on. In all, more than $75 billion worth of aid has gone to Ukraine from the U.S. And military spending, this part right here, accounts for well over half of that total. That is much, much more than the U.S. sends to any other country. And it absolutely dwarfs American contributions to Israel, which in 2021 was in the typical range of $3 to $4 billion, Laura.
Wow, just seeing the numbers laid out, it's really stunning to think about, and that's quite a difference. We have recent CNN polling, I think, on what Americans actually think about what you've just described. Let's start with Israel. What do those polls say?
Yeah, if you look at these, American sympathy for Israel is on a real upswing right now, so you might expect strong support for that relatively modest amount of U.S. aid to Israel. But the numbers paint a murkier picture. 35% of Americans say the current level of aid is about right. 15% say it's too much. 14% say it's too little. And 36%, the largest single group here, say they're unsure. And an interesting side note in this, the numbers show that Republicans and those who watch the news closely are more favorable to this current level of aid, Laura.
So what about Ukraine funding? Is there polling about that?
Yeah, we have one from back in August, and in that case, it shows a dramatic drop since the early days of the war when a large majority of Americans favored help to Ukraine, whether it's because of the length of the conflict or the raw amount of money that's sent that way. 55% of Americans, this number right down here, they are currently saying there should be no additional funding for Ukraine, and 45% say the money should keep flowing. And here, Republicans are saying that's enough spending for Ukraine. They strongly oppose more spending, and Democrats solidly favor more money for the fight against the Russians. So all of these numbers, put together the turmoil up on Capitol Hill. That's what President Biden is up against when he made that speech tonight, and what he'll be up against in coming days.
Tom Foreman, thank you for breaking it all down. It was really helpful to see the numbers right there. I appreciate it.